Hey, I'm Mark A. Altman.
And I'm Ashley Miller. We're missing DAREN DOCHTERMAN, but we are the Inglorious
Treksperts. We're ship with a missing man. But I got good news because guess who we're bringing in out of Interphase?
Who?
Do you want to know?
I do want to know.
Let me. Do you really want to know?
I really
let me give you a hint. He's one of our favorite people, and he worked and was contributed to some of the best episodes of the show we're about to talk about. And the show we're about to talk about, it's not Star Trek, it's Star Wars.
Star Wars.
He's also, I'm going to give it away now, Mr. Monday, the co-host of the 4:30 movie. It's none other than Steve Melching.
Steve Melching.
We're dropping in out of hyperspace.
What a lovely surprise.
Well, apparently you dropped out of Vermont or something. Look at that.
Oh my God.
Oh, this is Skywalker Ranch.
Oh, I thought it was the Overlook Hotel. Maybe if that's the same thing.
Oh my God, that's so funny. That's so funny.
Coming to you live on digital tape from Skywalker Ranch. Actually,
speaking of Skywalker Ranch, did you see Peter Holmstrom and Daniel Noah have been kicking butt with their Kickstarter for George Lucas? I keep calling it the Lost Years. I don't think that's the name of the thing. But,
it's like when George Lucas went on a bender and disappeared for a
but it's all about that era when he was doing the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles and Red Tails and all that. It was like the pre-prequels and the post-sequel, post-original trilogy. Really interesting thing. And they're just the guys to do it. I've said on the show before, when Peter told me they were thinking of doing a podcast about the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, I'm like, are you out of your mind? And it turns out that it's been a huge hit and people love it, and they've had amazing guests and they are filling a niche. So I'm going to start my crime story podcast next.
I like that show. I mean, for me, Young Indiana Jones, when it came out, it was one of those shows that didn't really scratch the itch for what most people were expecting from an Indiana Jones show, because it wasn't Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was something very different, but I thought they did a lot of really interesting things. And, for my money, I think about a third of the episodes were great. A third of them were good and a third of them were not so good. But
so that's the general ratio for like a 22 episode season of television.
I was so excited. I remember they showed the logo. And at the time, I was in entertainment licensing. I'm like, oh, I got to get this license because this is going to be a great show. And it was, history. It was a lot of history. He was going to be involved in all these historical. I thought it was great. And of course, they started with the Corey Carrier episodes, which were not good. But then they would have alternate with the other episodes where he was older. And it was really interesting. And of course, the Harrison Ford, the jazz one, is, I think, whether Harrison Ford was in it or not, was a great episode.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I had a very difficult time getting into that show because I felt like it didn't necessarily represent what I loved about Raiders and Temple of Doom. It felt like, oh, this is the show about the Indiana Jones that we know from The Last Crusade, even though I don't know if the timing necessarily works on that. But there was something about it.
Yeah, Last Crusade was 89 and this was early 90s.
Yeah. So it was like there was something safe about it. On the other hand, it was like I didn't dislike it. I thought it was interesting. I like Steve, I agree. I think like there were some really great stories. But there was something about it that just sort of set me off. But that said, I think it was Sean Patrick Flannery was played Indy. And you know what? I got to work with him on the one, episode of the Twilight Zone that I got to actually go to set and produce. And
the Golden Earring song.
Like the Golden Earring song. We did the whole video. It was crazy. No, the second worst Twilight Zone iteration. No longer the worst, thanks to Jordan. That's just fucking terrible. But no, that episode was really good, man. I had him. I had Ian McShane, for God's sake. I mean, what a cast. And he was really fun, man. He was cool. And like the day that like we were shooting in an insane asylum and we lost a day of shooting, like the film simply did not develop. They said that the insane asylum was haunted and that it was probably the ghost's fault. Personally, I thought it was just some idiot.
First day season. Have you ever not shot in insane asylum or an old hospital where people are like, this place is haunted. We shot at the Ambassador Hotel, and they were trying to make the ghost of Robert Kennedy happen. And they're like, oh, it's the anniversary of the. I said, no, it's not. That was in June. December. What kind of bullshit is this? I said, and if Robert Kennedy was a ghost, he would not be haunting the Ambassador kitchen.
No, but you know what though? If the Robert Kennedy ghost is there, it means that the Rosie Greer ghost might be there, right? What people don't remember is that Rosie Greer was on his security detail, and that was the reason why they started assigning Secret Service. It was like he literally had Rosie Greer was his bodyguard.
And the problem was Ray Milland was attached to him, and so he's there too.
Exactly. It's like it's for fans. It's for fans.
For fans. So the reason I bring up the prequel with this Young Indiana Jones Chronicles is, of course, prequels don't always have to be horrible. I'm looking at you. No, I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
But there was a wonderful Star Wars prequel, which, of course, was the Clone Wars, and fantastic animated series. And Ashley and I were lucky enough to have the chance to interview some of the cast recently. And it was a great panel. We're going to be sharing that with you in a little bit. But we thought it would be great to have Steve join us because Steve was such an important part of that show. And later on, Star Wars Rebels as well. But what's so interesting about the Clone Wars is not only was Steve an important part of that show, literally from the beginning, because, of course, his episode was part of the theatrical release. And his name is one of the few names ever to share a writing credit on a George Lucas Star Wars. That was really exciting. So, Steve, tell us about, begun the Clone Wars have for you.
Well, I just realized as I was getting ready for this that it was exactly 20 years ago that I started working on Clone Wars. It was by August of 2005. I got the call to be on. I had interviewed for the head writer job, but didn't get it. But I guess made a good impression with the producer that she came back to me when they were hiring their episodic writers, and she wanted to hire me. And I met with the head writer, story developer who did get hired, my good friend Henry Gilroy, and he hired me to start writing on the show, and I ended up writing would have been the second episode of the show. That was the second of a 3-part episode, which ultimately got folded into the movie that they ended up releasing, the Clone Wars movie, when it was edited together with a 4th episode that Scott Murphy wrote. And it was off to the races. I wrote a whole bunch of episodes in season 1, and through the vagaries of scheduling, I ended up writing 4 of the first 5 episodes that aired when it came out. The first episode, Ambush with Yoda, which I think was maybe episode 8 or 9, but they ended up making it the premiere episode. And then the first 2 parts of the Malevolence trilogy, and then the episode Rookies, which introduced the clone troopers as individual personalities,
so great.
with individual names, and that the brilliant D. Bradley Baker brought to life with such incredible nuance that continued through the run of the series. He's so good at I mean, I took pains to write each clone differently to give them a specific point of view or distinctive quirks, and then D just brought them to life in a way that you could tell them apart, even though it's the same guy doing the same character.
You know what the crazy thing about I gotta just interrupt. The craziest thing about D is I remember I asked him once, when he does like the Bad Batch or he does anything, like, do you record the individual characters? Do you record those down, and then you go to the next one, you record that down? He said, nope. I just do the script. I do each character. I just remember each one, and I just do the scene. That is so insane to me. Like, I can't even get my head around how crazy that is. That's pathological. There's like shit wrong with the human being who does that.
That tees up exactly what I wanted to say. I'm so glad Ashley said that. Of course, he's referring to when D. Bradley Baker worked with him on his wonderful show, DOTA, Dragon's Blood on Netflix. But we had D with us for our stage reading in Vegas. of War of the Worlds, and Ashley's like, no, we got to give him like 7 roles consecutively. So he played like 7 guys, and there's this point where he's literally having a conversation with 6 other people, and to see it live on stage was extraordinary. It was so cool, and you just see why D. Bradley Baker is D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah, he is something else, man.
And so you said you're having this conversation coming up with a couple of the other voice cast. They're all terrific too. I mean, I don't think you've mentioned who they are. Do you want to mention who they are? We can.
Well, I think I will. That's a good idea. So they're actors. They don't make up the dialogue. They read what's written by Steven Melching and other people. And of course, I'm talking about this. Just an amazing. I have to say, often we say, "Oh, these people were lovely." These people were truly lovely. Could not say enough good things about them. Matt Lanter, who of course plays Anakin and made that a fully fleshed out, dynamic character that evolves throughout the series. James Arnold Taylor, who among the other characters played Obi-Wan Kenobi, sensational. Whenever people talk about how great Ewan McGregor was, and he was great, that was one of the highlights of the prequels. Another person who played Obi-Wan brilliantly, of course, is James Arnold Taylor. And then finally, the person who breathed life into this new wonderful character that became a part of the saga, and such a wonderful character that we all fell in love with, is the Padawan Ashley Eckstein as the great Ahsoka Tano. And what a great and their stories and their banter, and it was great because literally Ashley and I found out a day before at GalaxyCon St. Louis that we were doing this panel. And, normally we do the Star Trek panels. We don't go anywhere near the Star Wars.
Star Wars crap. What is this?
And which is funny because, of course, we both love Star Wars. So when we were told we were getting Clone Wars, I mean, we both looked at each other, but we both realized we're huge fans of the Clone Wars, both of us. So it was like really exciting, but at the same time, we are Treksperts. I wouldn't necessarily say we're Warsperts. So we're like, how is this going to go? And it went great. I mean, I'll let you decide, but it went great. And Steve, obviously, one thing we didn't talk about was what a huge fan you were of Star Wars and are of Star Wars. You're a big fan of the originals, of course, the prequels. You passed dead deer on the road to go to Empire Strikes Back. And
it was like a sign.
Can you tell us, which is sort of like your own version of a wampa along the side of the road? They smell worse on the outside. But can you tell us what it meant to you to be part of the Star Wars universe? Because we often talk about our involvement in Star Trek and how meaningful that is. Ashley, came very close to writing a Star Trek movie. Obviously, I've been with Free Enterprise and stuff. So what does being a part of Star Wars mean to you?
Well, obviously, it was the culmination of a lifelong dream. I mean, like so many people of our generation, I saw the first movie in the theater in 1977 when it came out, and it was this, sort of seismic shift. It seems like the Earth axis suddenly tilted, like everything was different after the shot that changed everything with the Star Destroyer flying over the camera. It was, and that John Williams score and just that incredible melange of cowboy movies and Flash Gordon and samurai movies and all that great stuff that George, put together into this, this terrific story that with this brilliant special effects and everything that went into making that movie. And from that point on, the course of my life shifted like a lot of other people. I decided I needed to work in Hollywood, in movies or television. And I read everything I could get my hands on about the making of the movie, watched the TV specials about the making of the movie, and learned that this George Lucas character went to USC in Los Angeles. And I had, my parents grew up in LA, and my mom even went to USC for a semester when she was a student. And so I knew a little bit about the city, and I had relatives living there. So it wasn't, a complete, unknown to go there. And I just became, in my reading about George Lucas, I decided to to sort of watch all the things that he watched growing up that inspired him. So I watched the Flash Gordon serials, and I watched Akira Kurosawa movies, and I watched World War II movies and stuff like that. And I prepared for USC film school by taking every.
Can I stop you just for a second? I want you to continue. I just want to underline what Steve just said. He went back and looked at all the influences. It wasn't like he was just sitting there watching old Star Wars movies and the holiday special. He was watching Kurosawa. He was watching all these movies that influenced George Lucas. I think that's so important for anybody who's working on a auteur franchise, like a Star Wars, like a Star Trek, to do that. It's the same thing with Star Trek. I wish people would go back and watch Forbidden Planet, Day There Is Still. That's what they did when they were making. That's what Roddenberry did when he did Next Gen, when he did the original series. Look back at his influences. I just think it's so important. I think that's why you came from a place of love, but what you did was additive and not you weren't repeating, or you weren't doing being in that writer's room initially with Dave Filoni and Henry Gilroy. I can't imagine what it was like for you to carry the baggage of all this, but then to be free to explore this universe and doing it so well, and what a challenge that must have been.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I mean, I think I did what I did instinctually because I'm like, oh, George Lucas, like Kurosawa and Seven Samurai and the Hidden Fortress. Like, oh, wow, they have the Hidden Fortress on VHS at the video rental store. I'm gonna rent it and watch it. And then it's like, oh, okay, I see. Oh, Seven Samurai. So it's the different. I think the mistake that a lot of aspiring writers or fans of these things make is to only watch Star Wars, and you just end up making a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox that way. If you go back to the well that fed George Lucas's imagination, you can see where he's coming from, and he combined that with his own interests like car culture and experimental editing and stuff like that, and it created that special sauce, that formula, that recipe for Star Wars. And what I think was smart that someone like Dave Filoni did is he did the same thing, but he also had an interest in Japanese anime, like Lone
Wolf and Cub,
right. Miyazaki and stuff like that. So he brought those elements into the mix and kind of complemented the ingredients that were already there, rather than and that was something that we all struggled with in that first season of Clone Wars, because we're all so excited to be there. And so we all found ourselves writing stories or action sequences that were sort of echoes of things that George had already done. And to George's credit, he was not having it. Like, he would smack it down like, no, we already did that. Like there was a scene in the movie, or in the first episode, that was a walker attack on a separatist base, and they were crashing through the jungle and fighting the droid army. And George is like, we've seen that, we saw that in Empire Strikes Back. Let's do something different. What if they're going up the side of something instead of across? And so like, oh, okay. So they had the walkers climbing up the side of a sheer cliff face. So now there's this new dimension to that action scene that we hadn't seen before. So when we're writing our stories and our action scenes, we're always looking for ways to do a twist on something that had been done, at least do a twist on something that may have been done before, if not something wholly original.
But what you did in the first place, though, I think it's very natural instinct to want to work that way.
Yeah.
When you love something that much, in your mind, you're paying homage, but what you're actually doing is karaoke.
Yes.
And that's the problem. When I was working on the ill-fated remake of Big Trouble in Little China, we finished our first draft, and I was very excited that we finished our first draft. And then I read it and I realized, oh Jesus, we just wrote the wrong fucking movie. We just did karaoke, which is the worst thing we could have done. So you kind of have to do what George did, and more, and all credit to him for saying, think one more degree outside the box. Take that thing you love and now find another way into it so that you can own it. And I think that the great thing about the Clone Wars, and look, man, I was not, and still am not, a prequel fan, but I'm a massive Clone Wars fan.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
And it's like it's almost like I have difficulty. I swear I think like if there's been any renaissance of feeling over like the prequels, I think it's driven entirely by people projecting shit from the Clone Wars onto the prequels. Like I'll never forget like trying to watch all of that in order with Caden. Like we waited on Revenge of the Sith. And so when we got to Revenge of the Sith, he watched it and he looked at me and he goes, "What was that?" He was like, "What was that?" I was like, I tried not to bias you, but yeah, no, but it was just such a great show, and especially like it found its voice. I think when your incredible episode where we really got to know those clone troopers, and they really became characters in their own right. This is the part where I'm going to start bragging on you. I'm a huge Steve Melching fan. I might be the president of the Steve Melching fan club. I come by that honestly.
Can I be vice president?
You can be vice president, but I got to be the president because I got an intern and a desk. Wait, what? This is a family show, so forget I said that. No, I when I started doing DOTA, the very first phone call that I made was to Steve Melching. Because I was such a fan of Steve as a human, and as a writer, and what he knows and what he can do in animation, and your facility with action scenes, and really how to maximize the power of animation. You were somebody that I could just go and write it. And I would barely have to do anything else at all, and just felt great about everything that you did. And I feel like, a lot of things that we take for granted about what's great about, the Star Wars universe now, like, especially once we get post Empire. I mean, even I feel the influence of Clone Wars, even in things like Andor. But like once we're like in those places, I think, Star Wars owes such an incredible debt to you, to Henry Gilroy. Like I know, look, we all like everybody talks about Dave Filoni. Just ask Dave Filoni. But there's not enough conversation, I think, about what you guys did and what you brought to it and what those actors brought to it.
Yeah,
we take that for granted. They made is it Matt Lanter?
Made you forget about Hayden Christensen, unless you
absolutely. Hayden Christensen shows up at GalaxyCon, right, to sign autographs. My dude, like, is sitting there. I don't want to talk about how much money that man must have made, like, signing autographs. But I've got to tell you, I think he owes about 80% of it to Matt Lanter, because you look at what he did. Look, he seems like a perfectly wonderful guy, right? He seems like a perfectly wonderful guy. He is not good in those movies. But Matt Lanter is awesome. He is awesome. And I think we project a lot of, or fans project a lot of affection for that character based on what Matt did, on Hayden Christensen.
Well, look, I think what we should do is, share our conversation with Matt, James, and Ashley. And then we'll be back with Steve to share a few closing thoughts about his experience on the Clone Wars. So stay tuned.
I think, it always, the beginning is a very delicate time. We want to talk about getting involved with the Clone Wars, the initial process. Obviously, there's a lot of, with voiceover work, it's an audition, there's a lot of self-tape stuff that happens now, or, casting directors know your work from other shows. Can you each tell us how the Clone Wars came to you? And obviously, it's been had a wonderful impact on your lives and your careers. Matt, what was your first introduction?
My introduction was a very simple audition that they didn't tell us what it was. I knew it was Star Wars something. That's kind of about it. They actually gave me a fake character. Tried to research this fake character. That didn't work out too well. And yeah, so I went in the booth. I remember Dave was there, and I read some copy. And it was a scene with R2, and he said, whatever you think Han Solo and Luke Skywalker is, mashed up, essentially, just give me that. And so that's what I did. And then I left, and then days later they called and said, you got the job.
And what was your reaction when you found out that it wasn't this a pseudonymous character. It was actually Anakin, who I presume you were familiar with.
Yeah. I wasn't a huge Star Wars fan, but obviously familiar. I mean,
Right.
Anakin Skywalker is just an iconic character. So, yeah, I think initial impression was, oh, those are big shoes to fill. But what I will say is that when we got into recording, I really found out that Dave and George hired me from what I had brought to the table originally, and that's in fact probably why they didn't tell people who this character was, because they didn't want just a bunch of copies of Hayden Christensen. So I felt freedom in that,
Right.
and I just let Dave and George direct me.
Right. They didn't want a slavish recreation just to bring your own inspiration to it. So, James, you had already been working on the Genndy Tartakovsky version of Clone Wars, which is fascinating. So how did that come about for you and the transition to Dave's show?
Well, it had been going on. So it's been 23 years. We started that. It came out in 2003, but we started in 2002 for the micro series of the Clone Wars, and that was just through an audition. And I had done some of Ewan McGregor's voice doubling for other things. And a lot of times it was like, things like Moulin Rouge and stuff where he had an American accent. And I thought, well, his voice with an American accent is somewhere about there. And I thought, well, that's just kind of my voice. So if I put a British accent on, will I sound like it? Wait a second. So I'm basically doing Ewan McGregor doing Alec Guinness doing Obi-Wan Kenobi. But then I've heard that lately that Ewan has been watching Clone Wars, and when he did the Kenobi series, he watched Clone Wars to get the voice back, and I thought, well, there's a weird world circular going back. But so I had been doing other things like the original Battlefront 2 and Revenge of the Sith, the video game and such, throughout the years before that. And so then when Clone Wars came back now, I met with Dave as well out in Los Angeles, and we had a talk. They actually did have me audition for Anakin as well, which was weird, and it just didn't work out at all. But
Give us your best Anakin.
Well, I was thinking Hayden sounded a little like Christopher Walken.
I hate sand. Sand is so gritty. It's gross. I don't like it. Padme.
You just improved the prequels about 1,000%.
So, anyways, but yeah.
We would have gone for like 3 episodes and been canceled had that been our Anakin.
Come now, Anakin. What's going on? Oh, I could use some more cowbell.
What's crazy is that Walken was one of the original audition for Han Solo in '76. For De Palma and Lucas. So that's wild. Ashley, you had the unique position of being in auditioning for a character that didn't exist in Star Wars canon yet, and cemented this legendary character for all time. Can you talk about what that was like in your initial audition and becoming Ahsoka Tano?
Yes, so similar to Matt, I went in and I auditioned for Padme, and
I did not audition for Padme.
But James did.
I did, yes.
As Christopher Walken.
I did it as Johnny Depp.
Yo-ho, Anakin. Where's the rum?
Okay, I realized as I said that, I was like, oh, no, I just laid you up perfectly for that. Didn't mean it. I was getting to what was similar. So I originally auditioned for Padme. I knew that I sounded nothing like Padme. And I'm a very positive person, but I almost did not audition. I walked into the audition, and the room was full. Like 100 actresses were in there, all the top actresses in voiceover. I had auditioned for about 4 years, which equaled about 400 auditions that I did not get. And I lost out to all the actresses in that room. And I walked in and I was like, I have no chance at this. Like, Tara Strong and I think Gray Delisle and all the names that are legends that we still see and meet at conventions, they were all in there. And so I literally walked out of the audition. I went to my car, I put my keys in the ignition, and I called my agent and I said, I'm not staying. I said, I have no chance at this role. I'm not staying. And he begged me. He said, Ashley, whatever you do not leave that audition. Go back in there because you never know what could happen. So I go back in. I wait like an hour. I'm really hangry at this point, which is why I think I had walked out. And I said, one line is Padme. And sure enough, Dave Filoni stopped me. And he was like, no, you sound too young to be Padme. But this is where it's similar to Matt. They said there's this new character. She's a 14-year-old girl. We think you might be right for her. And so then they gave me these very generic lines. And I knew nothing about the character. Like, literally, I just knew she was a 14-year-old girl. But they did tell me that they wanted her to have an Icelandic accent. Well, that was the issue.
Of course.
Yeah. I do not have an Icelandic accent.
Really?
No, it was not just in my pocket that I could just pull out. And so I did my best, and that was it. And I was like, once again, that's audition 401 that I did not get. And unlike Matt, I don't know, James, about you, but I didn't find out that I got a call back for at least a month. Like, it was a long wait before I found out that I had a call back. And in between, they said, can you please tell her to practice her Icelandic accent? So I did. I went to a dialect coach. I was so proud of myself. I thought I mastered Icelandic. Well, I go into the callback. I say the first line in Icelandic, and Dave Filoni stops me. And he says, no, can you make it sound more Icelandic? And by this time, I'm like hangry all over again because I didn't know what he wanted. And I did something that I would normally never do. I raised my hand and I said, I'm sorry, but I am doing Icelandic. I don't know what you want.
God bless you.
And well, that got me the part.
Behold,
Yes,
Snips was born.
yes, yes. So being snippy actually paid off.
It was probably the delivery of that retort that's what got you the part.
It was. Well, because Dave wanted Ahsoka to be snippy but not bratty. And so somehow I rode that fine line between literally being snippy to him, but obviously I wasn't that rude because I got the part. But it also...
Have you ever been rude ever in your life? I don't think
know.
so, Ashley.
My parents
Your
are
parents
here.
are. I don't think he's ever been rude. Yeah, just say something.
rude.
Say something rude to
Let's see
Matt.
how it sounds. Cut
How
me down.
rude. Something rude.
That was so cute.
Which is
She can't help it.
So, Mark alluded to the fact that at least two of you were walking into these parts that were people kind of doing parts that had been originated by somebody else, and that Ashley, you were wholly original, but you were wholly original in a way that you were finding your character. At some point for each of you, you must have hit a moment where you're like, okay, I'm not doing Ian McGregor karaoke anymore. Or I actually understand who Ahsoka is now, and this is the journey that we're on. Or I am never going to be as whiny as Hayden Christensen. Like there's what was that moment for each of you? Because honestly, as a fan of the show, I felt like the dynamic between the three of you was really the heart of the show. There were so many good things about it, but you were the people who carried that series.
Thank you. I don't know, Matt. You want to start?
Yeah, I mean, what's the?
Well, I'll start.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
start. Because we have talked about this, but some people might not know. In voice acting, this happens quite often. It does happen in live action too, but it really happens in voice acting where you get the part, and then you record oftentimes for a little while. You do a couple of episodes, and then they decide they don't want you anymore, and then you're recast. And that actually happened with Anakin. So there was a different Anakin in the beginning.
Yeah, it was the Anakin from the Clone Wars micro series and
Yes.
such, and the games and stuff that I'd been working with. Yeah.
And he's so wonderful. He's a very, very talented actor, lovely actor, very nice guy. But it happens to all of us. I had actually been recast 3 different times, and it's heartbreaking. So Matt, we had been recording for about 6 months before Matt came in, and for me, it took about 6 months to find the voice of Ahsoka. At first, we were just reading her too serious. Like, she's in war. She's fighting in a war. So I think I took it too seriously, and I just needed to, really form these relationships. Even though they're in war, there's still love and heart and camaraderie there. And I really do think it did take Matt coming in, and I think we all really hit our stride.
Yep. I would agree with that completely. Yeah, I was actually, the first one we recorded together was some of the first episodes that you see. Now, again, the movie was actually the original 4 episodes that were going to be the series, and George loved them so much, he said, let's turn it into a movie. And so then the ones that ended up being there was, Plo Koon was the first one. So I voiced Jedi Master Plo Koon as well. And so I was actually with Matt and Ashley doing Plo, not Obi-Wan at all. But I remember being in the room, and I was like, I got to up my game because these two are really amazing. Now, Ashley and I had been working together, but Matt he brought the level up with his just natural ability as an actor, but also just, it was just like, yeah, I'm just going to take this and make it my own. And that made us all more comfortable to do that. Because being a voice double as a voice actor, I've voiced, everybody from, Jay Baruchel as Hiccup in How to Train Your Dragon, and or Fish Legs, or, well, wait a second, Doc, Michael J. Fox. Well, Doc, this is heavy. Great Scott, Marty, weight has nothing to do with it. So you spend your time, how would somebody else do this? And you have to be them. And then George gave us all that freedom to say, you be the character now. So that's where we did it. But I think the two of them really set that pace. And Kat Tabor as Padme. Kat was not concerned about sounding just like Natalie. She just wanted to make it her own.
I mean, bouncing back to the, feeling the freedom to kind of just do my own thing. George specifically told me that they wanted this Anakin to be seen in a different season of his life. He was a hero. And we heard about that, but we didn't really get to see it in the films. And we wanted to see the hero Anakin. I mean, they specifically told me they kind of wanted a swashbuckling, charismatic Anakin, kind of funny and humorous at times. And so, I took those notes and kind of went after it and really. One thing I did go back and watch the films with Hayden is the cadence. He speaks with a certain Star Wars cadence. And Star Wars, I guess in general, kind of they speak that way. Like, this is where the fun begins, and I have a bad feeling, So I definitely went back and watched his performance to try to emulate the cadence of that character. Yeah.
I think the biggest compliment to the Clone Wars is when people say it enriched the prequels, which clearly it does. I mean, there's so much depth and complexity in the series that, exists and I'm doing this without trying to say anything bad about the prequels, but the Clone Wars is such a great series, and it becomes more complex as it goes on. One of the things we see you guys talking to each other is this incredible chemistry you have. And often in animation, it's a casting director directing somebody in a booth doing lines they just got, sent the night before. But it seems like, at least in the beginning, you guys were working off each other and could benefit from the chemistry that you all had together. And that is why the performances are so rich. Did that continue throughout?
That's the coolest thing is we are like family. We are like siblings. And I mean, it just always has been that way, I think, naturally. I feel like we've known each other forever.
We were almost always in the booth together, except in the very beginning when I had to dub over the other actor's performance, which was really tough. So the first several episodes is actually kind of half my performance. It's my voice over his performance. So it was tough, but yeah, I mean, almost the whole run of the series, we were together, and obviously that really helped, chemistry, getting to look at each other and see facial expressions and
make fun of each other.
And yeah, so it helped.
That happened. Yep. But I will say, and to fast forward to today, I mean, we were fortunate that we recorded all of our stuff except for Tales of the Jedi. Tales of the Jedi was virtual because that was during COVID, but everything else was before COVID, and we got to record it together as a cast. And I think it's a lesson just in general, and not a lesson, but a reminder, which is so cool that we're all here in person today. I have my phone right here, but it's like, phones are great to to stay in touch with one another, to text one another, but they're not meant to replace in-person connection. You cannot form the same bond that we have completely virtual. It's just not something that you know, the two aren't meant to replace each other. Connection in person is a basic need. So just like food and water and sleep, we need connection. We need in-person connection. And so I'm so grateful that we had that, because there's no way we would have the relationship and our characters would have the bond that they do without the fact that we were in person.
You know, it's so interesting to me because, you know, very often when voice actors will come into the studio, or even if, you know, we're recording them remotely, if we've got the other performances, it's okay, you know, play it down so I kind of hear what's going on. But what you're saying is 100% true. When you have the actors in the studio together, something happens. Sometimes you find things together in the studio in a scene that you don't find when you're just playing it down. Can you think of of something like a moment, a scene where it was just like, oh, this is magic. This changed everything.
Well, the clip you showed of Mortis with Matt, I mean, that whole, was it three episodes? Really, we've kind of been discovering that through the last year doing the shows, the cons, talking about that, right? How it kind of brought us all together in a different way. There was just moments in there.
Yeah. There was, when we met Dark Side Ahsoka in Mortis, I couldn't find her. I couldn't find Ahsoka's dark side voice at all.
It's because you're so sweet.
She's definitely not rude, is the thing.
She's not rude.
Oh my gosh. No, my parents are here, and they're Mama and Papa Tano. They've definitely seen me, you know, get frustrated and lose my temper. We all, you know, it happens to all of us. So,
No, Matt, it doesn't happen to me.
The one thing I would have changed about Dark Side Ahsoka is I wish she would have had an Icelandic accent.
As if she did. Then she would have been creepy, yeah, even more creepy.
that would have been a really fun Easter egg. Can we go back and re-record it?
Yeah, just on our own time.
Yes, that would be fun. That would be fun. But anyways, I could not have gotten the performance without James. I was really, really struggling, and James walked over, and he was like, hey, try it this way. Maybe, did you ever think about reading it this way? And because of his direction, I was able to get it immediately, but I couldn't have gotten it without his help. It's true.
Shucks.
True story.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I should have said it like Dave Filoni. Okay, Ashley, I need you to do it more like, that's my Dave Filoni impression. It's very accurate, guys. Come on.
I'm glad you mentioned Filoni, because that was the thing I actually just wanted to ask you about. You had your North Star, your George Lucas in this series, the auteur that was Dave Filoni, who had a strong vision for what the show should be and was very communicative about it. And now obviously I don't want to take away from Henry Gilroy, who was an immense talent,
Yes,
and the
huge.
incredible team that was involved, everybody from Steve Melching to the other writers. But can you tell us about sort of your relationship with Filoni, and obviously this encyclopedia of Star Wars, that walking, you know, encyclopedia of Star Wars?
How much time you got?
17 minutes and 42 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Dave was obviously, as you say, the North Star. Every episode we recorded, Dave would sit there and talk for about half an hour before we even started, just setting up the whole thing emotionally, where the whole feel of the episode was, emotionally, where each character was. And he would just sit there and talk. And, you know, George also, we have to give credit. I think that was one of the last projects that he actually, day-to-day, was giving notes. I know he was watching episodes of the Clone Wars and giving notes back to Dave, and then that would translate to us down in LA recording. But yeah, I mean, obviously, just completely essential. The series would not be what it is without Dave.
Yeah, no, absolutely extraordinary. And a lot of people don't realize it's different in live action. You're blocking, you're giving it a performance, you're having to worry about where the lights are, what the schedule is, what the time is. When you're doing this, the animation is following your lead. So I'm curious about how you feel your performance influenced the animation, and also what your reaction was when you saw these episodes finished as well, and the way that it was all realized, which is so beautiful.
Well, the interesting thing, especially in the beginning, when, you know, they were still figuring out how our characters truly looked and talked and moved, they filmed us during every record, and a lot of my facial expressions, our facial expressions, are on our characters. So Ahsoka was not drawn to look like me. She was already drawn before I was cast, but there's many times where Ahsoka does look like me because it's literally how my face looks when I say that.
That's what your eyes did in the moment.
Yes, and to the point where literally my husband David or my parents are watching it and they're like, oh, we've seen that look before. So it's really interesting to see how they do it. So in many ways, our characters, especially Matt and I, you know, I think we took the most liberty, especially me. Like, I was cast as Ahsoka to be myself, to bring my own personality. And so, yeah, I mean, they were watching us closely to make sure that they used our performances for our characters.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you see Obi-Wan doing this, you know, a lot of that. It's kind of like, and that's because that's what I would deliver the lines like that. And then Matt would put his hands on his hips or he'd cross his arms, you know, and do those, well, master, you know, and it was like those, and then you watch it and you go, oh, that's what we did. It's so cool. So we started testing it to go, you know, make funny faces. No, but yeah, it really is. They had cameras on us pretty much all the time.
James, when we were starting the panel, you were looking up and we had the commercial of the infamous early bird box set from '77 where they shipped an empty box because they couldn't keep up with demand for the action figures. You had one?
Yes, I'm an old man. A long time ago. Come here, my little friends. Yes. I was one of those kids, yeah, because I saw Star Wars when I was 7 years old. And then I remember the Christmas where the lightsabers came out, and they were, you know, the red flashlights that well, you guys are too young. There were just flashlights that were just, you know, with these giant D batteries, and they just put a plastic tube on them, and those were lightsabers, like the actual like ones they sold. It was just a flashlight and I got one of those, and I got the Darth Vader one. I got red. Which red's not my color, but I remember as a kid turning it on in the middle of the night. I snuck down and got the lightsaber. But yeah, rip-off. You got a box with superhero with the
I was just going to ask that. I was like, did you say they were shipping empty boxes?
Yeah, they literally shipped you
It was a
empty
metaphor
box.
for something.
Yeah.
They couldn't make keep up with demand for
So
the
they just
action
sent the
figures.
box.
So you would, and
Yeah.
with a gift certificate that you would then get in April,
Yeah.
6 months after Christmas, the actual action figures. So kids would go under their tree and open up
an
these
empty
boxes,
box.
and they were empty.
Yeah.
What?
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Times were wild back then. You guys, I don't know how you did it.
Well, they weren't even called lightsabers; they were called laser swords.
Laser
They
swords,
hadn't
and then there was that
trademarked
little
it.
thing on the arm. Have you seen those? You know, and it was just that little stick that would come out of his arm. It was really cool. I loved it. And their arms wouldn't bend.
Well, I'd be remiss, Ashley. We're talking about Star Wars merchandise. It's improved over the years considerably, and of course, you have a very successful line inspired by your geekdom, Her Universe. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Your fashion line?
Thank you. Yes, I'm wearing a piece from Her Universe today. It's actually an Our Universe piece. So I started Her Universe back in 2010, and it was just for women and girls. So Star Wars, it eventually grew to be other properties like Doctor Who and Star Trek and Marvel, but it was just fandom fashion for women and girls because back in 2010, that didn't exist. You know, they said that women and girls would never buy Star Wars merchandise made for them. And I'm like, well, that's not true. There's a lot of us. And, you know, so much has changed just in 15 years. I mean, it really is equal. And it's so cool to see, like, Matt's daughter, you know, Kenny, just whacking her lightsaber everywhere and loving Ahsoka. But back then, you know, it just... If you were a girl and you like Star Wars, you had to just buy a boys t-shirt. So now we also have a sub-brand called Our Universe, which is unisex and for men and boys. And so yeah, it's grown quite a bit, and I'm so grateful. And I see so many people in the audience.
I was going to say,
wearing
raise
the
your hand if you
designs.
own a Her Universe piece. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. There's
Thank
just
you.
one or two out there. Yeah.
Thank you for your support. You know, the goal was always just to create a more inclusive space for fandom. You know, there was a lot of bullying and I wanted the bullying to end, and I felt like if women and girls had something that was made for them, they would feel more comfortable to show up and just be like, hi, I'm a girl and I like Star Wars. And it's so cool. I mean, I look out in the audience. It is 50-50 because Star Wars is for everyone.
And Matt, you've seen the fans support so much of what you've done, and sort of literally like the Phoenix from the Ashes. Clone Wars came back not just once but twice because of the fans, but also Timeless, which was a show which was immensely popular, which was canceled, and then the fans got NBC to pick it up for more seasons. So you've been, having this incredible fan support. That must have been a great experience, and at the same time somewhat worrisome.
Yeah, well, that's the career of an actor. Everything I've been on has gotten canceled. That was really incredible. Yeah, the fan support for that show is just really, it's wild. I mean, people were spending their own money to fly banners at Comic-Con to save the show, and at this point, it's kind of become like one of those little cult classic things where it's got 2 seasons and they're short and they're sweet, but people love it. And I'm very proud of that project. I think we did a lot of things right in that project. I still hold out hope that one day it could come back because, we
never know.
I think it will.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll be real old, but we can't get into the time machine,
I was acting.
I said he's a really good actor, Ashley.
Oh
I
my
told
gosh,
you.
that scared
And the Emmy
me.
goes too.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, yeah, thanks. It was,
Well,
I was gonna say, I'm like Taylor Swift. Good thing I like my friends canceled. Does anyone get that? A few people, thank you. That's my version of a dad joke.
we have so many more.
I don't know what that means.
You can explain it to us later.
Sure what that means.
We have so many more questions, but I want to give the audience a chance to ask questions. So there's a microphone right over there if you want to line up, and and you have to
Look
do
at
it.
that. They do want to line up.
Ask your questions with an Icelandic accent, please.
If
Yes.
you could. Also, please try to fight your way to the front. That would be great.
All these years we've done this, we've never got Ashley to do the Icelandic accent at any show.
It's
Oh
your
my
big
gosh,
chance,
because I
ma'am.
can't do it anymore.
That's the fun of it.
They
Just
won't
try
know.
it.
Yeah.
No one will record this.
Come on, Anakin, let's go.
I don't know if that's Icelandic, but I'm just saying.
Hi, my name is Caitlin. My question is, can you do an Icelandic accent? No.
Caitlin.
No, my question is a little melancholy, so sorry. But I agree that the 3-year characters' bond is probably, for me, the highlight of the show. And before Order 66 in the extra season, what do you think your character's last thoughts of the other 2 were before everything started going wrong?
Oh, yeah. Ooh. We've never been asked that. You guys are in deep thought.
Well, Ahsoka's last line to Anakin, instead of calling him Sky Guy, she says, Anakin, good luck. Which, by the way, we purposefully did. We purposefully made her call him Anakin, because she never did. She never called him Anakin, to make a point. But I do think she was having second thoughts. This is just my opinion, so don't quote me on this to Dave Filoni, or don't make this canon. But I do think she was having. I do think she was having second thoughts. But I think we've all been there. Chapters that we know are closed, but we don't want them to close, and so we see the good things. Maybe we get a glimmer of hope again, and we're like, maybe. But then we're reminded, no, that door closed for a reason. And I think she was trying to find those glimmers of hope, those moments and memories of the good times. But I think she knew in her heart that it's like this. It'll never be the same.
I think very cool question, but I think for Anakin, it's kind of like not applicable. Because I think he was already, he was so self-obsessed, I don't think there were thoughts of others except hatred and like negative feelings already towards Obi-Wan. It was already building and building. And
Want?
So his last thought was, who are you calling Anakin?
Yeah, I think so. He was like, "It's Darth Vader. Thank you very
Hello.
much." He was already gone.
And Obi-Wan, I've always said he's a true believer, right? I mean, you've got Yoda and Qui-Gon and all those, but throughout the whole thing, Obi-Wan is that one true believer in the Force and all that. So I think it's just like that powerful speech, you are the chosen one. He believes, he still thinks there's hope, even probably for Ahsoka to come back. And there was an episode that never aired that we recorded there's bits of pieces of it on YouTube where Anakin and Obi-Wan are in the desert, and he brings up Ahsoka and they have this conversation. And Obi-Wan is just that, well, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. So I think he would. I know the nice thing, Ashley and I have talked about this, the last little scene we had in season 7, spoiler alert. I think he did feel really bad. I did. When I found out that Obi-Wan didn't really stand up for Ahsoka with the council, I thought that was kind of weird and kind of a ripoff. So, I think they had their moments there, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Den. And my question is, you talked about the chemistry that the three of you had in the beginning. But as the story goes on, you kind of go separate ways to eventually you really have your own stories. What was that like, and how did you, function as your character without the other two to bounce off of?
We don't like each other now, so it's nice.
Obviously. Yeah.
Well, that's more of an Ahsoka. Like, Ahsoka really had that more than anybody, right?
Yeah. I will say in Star Wars Rebels, when Matt and I came back to record that scene with Anakin and Darth Vader, Ahsoka and Darth Vader, I looked at that scene as it was so bittersweet because I was so excited to record with Matt again, but then I kind of felt like, okay, well, this is goodbye. So when Clone Wars was canceled, we never had that goodbye. We thought we were coming back for work, and then the show was canceled. And so we were all devastated. And we didn't know if we would ever get to record again. Everything was done. So when Matt and I got to come back for this scene, I was also devastated. Like, I was grateful for the closure to get the chance to actually work together one more time. But as Ahsoka was saying goodbye to Anakin, really, in that scene, I was saying goodbye to Matt. It literally in my mind the whole time, I'm like, this is the last time we're ever going to record together.
I had given in to my hatred at that point.
He didn't care. No.
Whatever. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I just want to say, you made a grown-ass man cry in that last bit.
Make it
So
two.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zohair, and my question aims towards the very end of the series and the big climactic finale with like the fight that bridges from space down all the way down to the planet and how epic all that was. I just want to know what you can either answer for your character or yourselves, like what your general thoughts were of how everything ended and how everything came into place.
Well, I will say this, and I'll try to be quick. Season 2, D. Bradley Baker, the voice of all the clones, an amazing actor, and we love D, and myself were at Skywalker Ranch. We were doing some pickup stuff and all, and we were having lunch with Dave Filoni in the commissary, which is just so cool to say, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway, and Dave spelled out to us his vision for what he would do if he gets the opportunity to tie it all together into the movies. And I watched it and went, well, he did it. Yeah, so I don't know what your guys' thoughts are.
I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was beautifully poetic. And like the ending shots of Vader in the snow, so powerful and sad.
And I think, going back to your question, Mark, in the beginning, about Clone Wars now, I think should be considered part of your essential viewing as you're watching the movies. Because it really,
And you should buy it right now.
Why do you care? You don't get any money from that.
That's right, I don't. Misnomer, yes.
The gratification of it. Actually, I mean, I would even argue that probably other than the original, the best expressions of Star Wars are probably The Empire Strikes Back, Andor, and Clone Wars.
Oh,
Easily.
thank you. Thank you. So yes, if you're introducing someone to Star Wars in between Episode 2 and Episode 3, they really should watch the Clone Wars.
100%. I agree.
Thanks so much.
Thank you as well.
Well, the bad news is we only have time for one more question. The good news is they'll be at their
sorry.
booth and able to answer other questions and sign immediately after the panel, but you have the honor of the last question, so make it a good one, no pressure.
I'm Torrance. My question's kind of more of on a personal level. Is there anyone that you might not have had the chance to meet that you'd just be totally starstruck if you got the chance to meet him?
Matt
I feel
Lanter.
like most of us have almost met in the Star Wars universe, right? Is that what you're?
No, any idol, anybody.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, we've been very blessed. Ashley and I got to host, everything from Star Wars Celebration to Star Wars Weekends for years, and got to interview and work with, so many of these people in Star Wars. So it's been an amazing thing there. But yeah, Matt is just, a phenomenal on-camera actor and has had a pretty long career, and he's worked with all sorts of folks too. But I don't know. I would have to go then to like C.S. Lewis for me. I'd like to sit and hang out with C.S. Lewis because he was a pretty cool guy.
Is there somebody you have met that you've just been completely just started?
Matt Lanter.
Well, my answer to that question was going to be George Lucas. We've had the pleasure of meeting him several times. Whenever we would do a marketing event or a press event or a season premiere, it was often at Skywalker Ranch or, at the Egyptian Theater, and he was there. And my tongue was always tied. I literally could never form a sentence other than, "Hi, thank you for choosing me. Good to see you again. I'm Ashley. I play Ahsoka."
Yeah, every time remind him.
Like
Yeah.
that was that's all I could get out. But he's that kind of a guy. He's so kind. He's so just nice and down to earth and genuinely kind-hearted. So it's not that he was intimidating, because he's not intimidating, but it's George Lucas. What do you say to George Lucas other than thank you?
I don't know. Such a great question. This is like a maybe stupid answer. I wish I could meet myself 20 years ago and give myself the information and say, hey, don't sweat these things. Right?
Especially the cancellations, right?
Yeah. And then try to get residuals.
In life, general life things.
I was going to say, and get better residuals for Clone Wars. No,
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
I try to do
I
that.
kid. I had to top
Or
the joke.
you mentioned Egyptians, maybe Cleopatra, so I could finally find out how these things were built, the pyramids, One of the great mysteries.
Wow. Is that like your Roman Empire?
It's a 3D
Is
printer.
ancient Egypt?
Yeah, like all the time. How were the pyramids? Oh my, I can't figure it out. Yeah.
Well, we're so grateful.
Thank
You
you.
guys are
Terrible way to end the
fantastic.
panel.
What a great panel. Thank you all for being here.
And we're back. And what a wonderful conversation. What a great group of people, and the camaraderie, the fun. That was a true joy for us. And we even slipped in a little mention of Steve Melching there. So there
We
you go.
did. Melch.
A little plug for the Melch.
I'm only disappointed that for all the years that I worked on the Clone Wars, I never got to go to a recording session. So I don't think I've ever met Matt Lanter in person. I'd met Ashley, who is the most charming, wonderful, sweet person, incredibly talented, and she has her whole business with her universe and
Yep.
all that stuff.
And now his universe. Now she's doing his universe too.
And she's a delightful human being, and James Arnold Taylor, I've had the good fortune to work with on some other shows, and that man is a friggin' chameleon. I don't know if he ever did his Marty McFly voice for you. He's incredible and a really great guy, and what they did with those characters in the Clone Wars was, humanizing them in a way that was challenging, I think, for George to do in the prequels, because he had so much sort of plot and story to cover. And with the Clone Wars, we had, a couple hundred episodes to explore those characters in more detail and develop that friendship, that camaraderie and especially between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin, so that it rips your heart out when they have to face each other in episode 3. You really get a sense that they had a history together and a friendship and a bond, a camaraderie. And yeah, it was great.
And the
also,
show only
he
gets
had
better
the
as it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just gets more deep and grounded and real, and the politics, it leans into the politics, and that's why when you compare it to Andor, it's two different things. But I love that the Clone Wars felt like a real lived-in universe, and that there were all these politics and these betrayals, and I was just like, to me, it's like at the end of Attack of the Clones, Yoda says, "Begone the Clone Wars have," and then Revenge of the Sith opens with that space battle at the end of the Clone Wars. And it's like all the stuff that I wanted to see that we never got to see, we get to see in the Clone Wars. And to me, like, that is like the missing trilogy. And it's wonderful and just great. And those actors are great and the writing is great. And, because it's quote unquote a cartoon animation, it maybe doesn't get taken seriously the way it should, but I think it's such an important part of the mythology.
And we were able to develop the story in a way that's sort of organic and natural, where the start of a war, like we're going off to war and we're going to fight. Everyone's sort of enthusiastic about going off to sending the doughboys over there to fight the war. And then the war starts to drag on, and then you have the Battle of the Somme, and you have trench bogged down in trench warfare and just the horrors of war, and so we got to develop the Clone Wars series over time, where the early episodes by design are lighter, a lighter show, and as the series progresses, it gets darker and more sophisticated as you said, more politics comes into play and betrayals, and we learn more facets of the different sides that have something to gain or lose in the war, and the relationships between the characters deepen, and Ahsoka Tano grows up. She's this kind of bratty kid that let's not forget, when that show came out, people hated that character so much, and
she was the Scrappy Doo.
She's the Poochie, and she got a lot of hate when the show premiered, and I felt so bad for her. I mean, we all got a lot of hate, but her especially, because she played the character, and like, this character is so stupid, and they just didn't. I don't think audiences were ready for that and didn't understand what we were all trying to do, and we were able to develop that character. So she grew up, in this horrible backdrop of the Clone Wars, and she personified that character with her performance, and got to that place of becoming this world-weary, character.
Although, what's funny about that is, and by the way, she's amazing, and arguably, she's the heart and soul of Clone Wars. With maybe, I mean, like the trio, right? Like the Trinity. I think that they are the heart and soul of Clone Wars.
I think Rod of the Hutt is.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, Rod of the Hutt is coming back. Damn it!
I know.
That's something I'm so proud of. That little contributions that I had a hand in this
Cad
show.
Bane.
That continue to like, obviously, like Echo and Fives from Rookies continued through Clone Wars and into Rebels, and now into the Bad Batch. And, obviously, like in episode of Rookies at the beginning, I had the clones are sitting around listening to kind of a Voice of America radio broadcast. And the DJ, it talks about, this dedication goes out to the mud jumpers of the 224 slugging it out on Mimban. Well, 224 is my birthday, so I threw that in there. Mimban is a reference to the planet from Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the very first book, the kind of mud jungle planet. And so imagine my surprise when Solo, a Star Wars story, comes out, and there's Han Solo serving in the 224th Stormtrooper Battalion on Mimban in the mud. I'm like, that's my thing. I made that for my show.
That's so awesome.
Slipping in little things like that matriculate through and make it into other other series or
Well,
become
okay.
part of the lore, the
But
canon.
let's talk about that, because that's where I was going, right? Because the voice actors, as we were saying before, like they really transformed and elevated, I think, our opinions of a lot of the things that were happening in the prequels. I feel like Ian McGregor was maybe the sort of the lone shining light in the prequels in terms of the performances, at least for me. But those characters, those voice actors took something and kind of they made it real in ways that the live action simply did not. And isn't it ironic that Ashley Eckstein takes this character, this cartoon character, and grows her up from a little kid, basically, to a grown ass woman who makes her own choices, who defines her own morality, who establishes her own code and lives by it, doesn't ever lose, even though, world weary, but doesn't ever lose the heart of who she is. And then somehow, the second that they take the cartoon and they rotate it into the third dimension and it's live action, all of a sudden she is just boring as shit, right? Just like with like her arms crossed all the time, like she's cold, all the time, like this. It's astonishing to me that that something has happened where Star Wars is at its most alive when it's honestly, like, other than Andor, the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian. There's probably something else I'm forgetting, but it seems like it's most alive in its animated form.
Well, I think I wasn't involved in any of the live action shows, and I don't know how or why the decisions were made. And but I feel sometimes when you go into that third dimension, there's this desire to make everything more serious than it needs to be. It's Andor is a brilliant exception. Like, I thought that was the perfect tone for that story. I love Andor. It's one of my favorite, probably my favorite Star Wars since Empire Strikes Back.
Agree.
But I think, and that was something that I always kept in mind writing my Clone Wars episode. When I wrote the Yoda episode, Ambush, Yoda in the prequels had become something of a dour character. He's very grumpy and whatnot. And I always think of Yoda as he was in Empire Strikes Back. And granted, he was kind of playing a character when he first meets Luke, of this impish little guy who's sort of testing Luke. But
take you to him, I will.
Yeah, but he's got that glimmer in his eyes. So when I wrote the Yoda episode, I tried to bring back some of that sense of fun about the character, and again, it was done with purpose, because he's stuck on this planet with these 3 clones that are convinced they're all going to die because there's this droid army hunting them down, and so he's trying to bolster their spirits. And then at the brilliant suggestion of one of the producers, we added that scene where Yoda has them take their helmets off when they have a breather in a cave, so he can look at their faces. And he's like, well, we all share the same face. And Yoda's like, no, you're all different people, and I see that in you. And he addresses each one of them as individuals to bolster their confidence and their spirit. And so they're not machines to him; they are living beings, and that's important to him. So anyway, that's a long way of saying, like, there's always I think there's an element of fun that needs to be a part of Star Wars, and sometimes that's missing in the live action stuff, because they're trying to, this is serious, this is live action. We can't have fun. Nobody can smile.
It sort of becomes dour.
Yeah. And then there's that spirit of adventure in the original movies that I like. It's adventurous. It's more fun in a way.
It's fun, fun.
Even in Empire Strikes Back, you got, like you said, that whole scene with Yoda, mine. It's just it's so delightful when he's trying to.
Well, there's a lot of humor. C-3PO gets blasted into pieces, and he's there complaining about it. Doing his C-3PO thing. It's funny.
That's part of what we love about Star Wars, is just how funny it is. But it's all part of the story. It never is mocking itself. It's just it's coming out of character. So Steve, it was such a delight to have you talk about your Clone Wars experience, and obviously really terrific group of people: Matt Lanter, James Arnold Taylor, Ashley Eckstein. If you're a fan of Steve Melching, and who isn't, you can listen to him every week on the 4:30 Movie Podcast, where he is Mr. Monday. And you don't want to miss that if you're not already listening to the 4:30 Movie. It's now on YouTube as well as wherever you listen to podcasts, and you should check it out. Our new ninth season begins soon. But if you haven't, then season 1 through 8 will keep you busy for quite a while.
Especially the holiday specials. Well, actually, the 4:30 Movie, though, doesn't have holiday specials. Although, what if we did?
We should do a 4:30 Movie holiday special.
Yeah, we should.
God. Yeah, well, anyway. So, Steve, thank you for joining us as always. And of course, if you want to rate and review the show, please do. It helps bring new listeners to the show. You can email us directly at trekspertsplus@gmail.com. If you want to join the Steve Melching fan club, you can get a badge and a little coonskin cap. And you can't get any of that. Of course, you can follow us on social media, Inglorious Trek, Inglorious Treksperts on your favorite social media platform. And you can subscribe at trekspertsplus.com and get commercial-free episodes, bonus episodes, all kinds of great stuff. Plus, now we have some exclusive episodes on the YouTube feed. So if you haven't already subscribed, it's free on YouTube, and you can have access to episodes that aren't even available on the podcast. They're just going to be on the YouTube feed, and because they're a little more visual. So you want to watch it on YouTube, you can watch it on your TV, you can watch it on your phone, you can watch it wherever you go.
Like the bum fight episode. We're not going to do a bum fight episode? We're not going to...
No, we're going to do a muck time fighting arena.
Oh, nice. But with bums.
3 Treksperts go in, 1 Trekspert comes out. That Trekspert is Ashley Miller.
Yeah, honestly. Sorry, guys.
Unless I bring my phaser too. But I wouldn't want to fight Ashley. I like Ashley.
Yeah.
So...
Me too. I love that guy.
We're not going to kill today. But anyway, Steve, thank you so much for sharing your memories. It's so great to have a chance to highlight this, because you've had such an incredible career. Everything from Batman to Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot to all kinds of stuff. Batman Brave and the Bold. You've been working consistently now for a long time, but obviously working on something like Star Wars, which you grew up on, is just a remarkable feeling.
Well, definitely a highlight for sure, and a dream come true for a kid who had a Star Wars poster on his wall his entire life to suddenly be on a Star Wars poster. It was
right next to Farrah. By the way,
luminous being she is.
Speaking of war, luminous. Speaking of wars, are you watching the Ken Burns Revolutionary War documentary?
Ooh, I can't not wait. I have the first episode recorded. I love everything he does. I can't wait.
It's so great. Yeah. It started last night. So great. So great. I can't wait to watch the new episode as soon as we finish recording tonight. So anyway, a big thank you to Steven, and on behalf of Ashley and myself, Mark Altman, and a vacationing DAREN DOCHTERMAN, keep on trekking, ingloriously, of course. And what do we do then? He makes the sound, right? He goes, shh, something like that. Shh. Steve, can you make the sound, whatever it is, the warp speed sound? Oh, engage. There you go.